Want a huge deal on a large pizza? For a very limited time at Donato's, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. Yes, half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's. Gotta love more.
The Sports Desk at the Columbus Dispatch presents the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast. With your host, Ohio State basketball beat writer Adam Jardy.
Brandon Noel, give me the rock. Here it goes. Up and away. Slam jam bam, and now he does a little dance.
Now, the BuckeyeXtra Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Today is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026, and it's my official duty to welcome you into episode 557 of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast. Welcome to Jubilation City. Welcome to mid-May. Happy birthday to my nephew, Lucas. It's baseball season in the Jardy house. We had our first game last night, and Liam threw 2 innings, struck out 4, had a big RBI late in the game. I know that you come to the podcast to hear how our 12U baseball team is doing, but that's kind of where we are right now on the calendar, and we have some things that we can start looking forward to here. We got the Big Ten announcement this week of who will play teams on the road, who will play teams at home, who will have the home and home series. So we have a little bit more schedule information here, as well as obviously we know the Ohio State UConn home and home series is getting underway. And there's a new addition to the Ohio State roster. We're going to cover all that here really briefly in just a second. And then we're going to be joined on this episode by former Ohio State forward Brandon Noel. Got a hold of Brandon last week and reached out just to see would he be interested in coming on and having a conversation with us and just talking about like navigating this post-college world, like what this is like. And also, as you'll hear us talk about here in a moment, just dealing with like the abruptness of the end of a season and also the disjointedness that was this season. Obviously, he dealt with the injury for about 2 months, and that had a significant impact on not only his season, but Ohio State's season. And so we cover a lot of ground. It was a really, really enjoyable interview. He came into the studio. We recorded that as I'm speaking. We recorded that earlier this morning at the studio. I'm back home right now, looking outside at an overcast mid-May day that looks like March, to be totally honest. But I think you're really going to like that interview, so stay tuned for that. We'll get to it here in just a moment. I don't want to belabor the point off the top and go too long on these 2 bits of news that we do have to talk about. So like we said, Ohio State lands Vuk Lazarevic, who is a 7'1" center, played last season at Wasatch Academy out there in Utah. He is a native of Serbia. He was unranked in the 24/7 Sports rankings, averaged 8.0 points, 4.8 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks as the starter for Wasatch Academy last season. And a guy who we've got more to learn, certainly here in the next couple of days, weeks, months, but adds more size. This is another big body that Ohio State will have down low. We've talked on here about the potential for Ohio State to still add more pieces, development pieces to the mix for next season. This certainly fits that mold. This is a player who, from my understanding, wasn't really expected to come in and be a significant contributor at Wasatch last season, and then earned and won the starting spot and played against high-level competition, certainly got a chance to get his feet underneath him a little bit in the United States. And so, like Ivan Yagovin, Matthew Griachich, like neither of them spent time in the United States playing before then starting college basketball. Vuk will have played a year of high school ball to better acclimate himself and be a little bit more ready to play. It's known that UConn also was recruiting him, which, you know, is an interesting little wrinkle given that those 2 teams will play each other this year. So it's now a 3-man freshman class. Vuk will have 4 years of eligibility and gives Ohio State another 7-1 option in that front court. So more to come on him as we get a little bit further along into this, and hopefully We'll have an interview with him before long and get more of an understanding of his overall background. But that now brings Ohio State to 11 players as we understand the roster to be constructed. This doesn't include Braylon Nash and Miles Hero, but that gives Ohio State Amari Bynum, Anthony Thompson, Josh Ojonwina, Ivan Yagovin, Andrea Yelovich, Alex Smith, Justin Pippen, Jimmy Williams, Curtis Givens, and now Vuk Lazarevic. And that will become much more second nature the further along we go. Anthony Thompson will be part of a Team USA minicamp that begins on the 21st. And if he makes the team, would be part of the United States U18 team in a FIBA tournament that begins in early June. So that could potentially impact whether he's on campus at the start of June, like the rest of the team, or not. So there's a little bit of news there. We don't have an official Ohio State announcement from Justin Pippen. It remains just a paperwork thing. Like nothing is changing on his side or on Ohio State's side. Sometimes these contracts just take longer, and he will enroll on time with the rest of the class. Like nothing has changed. It's just simply a paperwork type of deal that these kinds of things can just pop up as you're dealing with these contracts in this era, and how this whole crazy sport works right now. So that's the roster as we understand it at this point. Perhaps they do add a developmental type of piece, but it would not be somebody expected to have any sort of significant playing role on next year's team. I saw a photo today of John Mobley Jr. working out. I forgot to mention him earlier when I was running down the list of players. I got to change the format that I have that on my computer because his name just didn't jump out. But yes, he's still on the roster, expected to be back next year. Working out at Memphis today is the last that I saw. So getting some opportunities, getting some looks. And Bruce Thornton also going through the NBA draft combine this week. We'll see kind of where things stand for him as the week progresses. I've seen him listed in 2 mock drafts as a late second round pick. I've seen him not listed in some other mock drafts. Time will tell on that. And then finally, like I mentioned earlier, we do have the list of teams that Ohio State will play and how many times Ohio State will play them in the Big Ten. So Ohio State's home and home opponents are Iowa, Michigan, and Penn State. So the protected rivalry with Michigan remains a protected rivalry, which I think we can all agree is a good thing. Ohio State will play only at home Maryland, Michigan State, Northwestern, Oregon, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and Washington. And then these are the 7 teams that Ohio State will only play on the road: Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, UCLA, and USC. Obviously, those last 2 will be the West Coast Los Angeles trip for the Buckeyes. That is a difficult slate of away games. And it's probably worth pointing out that schedules will expand to 32 games this season. So Ohio State will have an extra non-conference game. And certainly the tournament is expanding to 76 teams, which you would assume. I think that just changes the measuring stick by which we will measure a successful season. Simply making the tournament, making the opening round as opposed to the first 4, how that is weighted versus winning a first 4 game or winning a first round game. Like it's going to be interesting as this plays out. And we know Ohio State's schedule. They will play at BYU or play BYU in Salt Lake City to open the season. The Buckeyes will begin a home and home by playing at UConn. Ohio State will finish its home and home by going to Notre Dame. And then Ohio State will play Kansas in Madison Square Garden in the CBS Sports Classic. Those are the 4 non-conference games that we know about. None of those are at home. All of those are challenging. And then you add in Illinois on the road, Indiana on the road, Nebraska on the road, Purdue on the road. Both UCLA and USC look to be improved on what their rosters were last season, although I'm going to just consistently remind myself that no matter where I think the West Coast teams are going to be when I'm filling out preseason stuff, I'm going to drop them one spot, because that's just the West Coast life in the Big Ten is not easy. That's a daunting league slate for Ohio State. Having to go to Iowa City, a place where Ohio State very seldom has success, and where last year things really went off the rails. Ohio State will be back there. Michigan, we know what that's going to be like. Penn State really is, of the 10 Big Ten road games, like that's, I think, the one you circle right now and you say, okay, well, that's where you should win there. I don't really have a good idea for what Penn State is or what the Nittany Lions are going to be, but they've been on the struggle bus here for a little while. I'm going to withhold judgment on some of this until we actually get rosters. I mean, sitting here and trying to project, like, I don't know, how good is Indiana actually going to be, or Minnesota, or, what's Nebraska look like this year after what happened? Like, who knows? So we got a lot of time to debate this and figure this stuff out, but that is the news right now. This is who Ohio State plays, where. We won't get dates and broadcast info and things like that for a couple of months. So don't be holding your breath on that. That stuff takes quite a long time as the Big Ten goes through its broadcast partners and figures all that out. And it's just it's going to be a process. So that's all the news that we have at this moment. I would expect news on a new assistant coach soon. I know I kind of keep saying that. I just think again, this seems to be a paperwork thing, but I would expect an announcement. Heck, there might be an announcement by the time you hear this podcast. But we're going to end this part of the podcast here, and we're going to jump to Brandon Noel in just a second. Before we do, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you enjoy your favorite podcasts. If you subscribe, you'll automatically get the newest ones just as soon as our man Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, can grab them and publish them for us. While you're subscribing or downloading, please leave a review. Please click 5 stars, and please consider telling a friend. Thanks to everyone who's taking the time to do all those things. Donato's is legendary for putting so many toppings on their pizzas, but just wait till you hear what they're taking off. For a very limited time, when you buy any large Donato's pizza, you can add a large one-topping pizza for 50% off. That's right, half off. You order using promo code HALF. Order your favorite large Donato's pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off today. Donato's, gotta love more. All right, now, without further ado, Brandon Noel. All right, now, I'm thrilled to be joined on this episode of the BuckeyeXtra Men's Basketball Podcast by the best beard to play for Ohio State since Keyshawn Woods, probably. We're joined here in the studio by Brandon Noel, starting power forward on the 2025-26 Ohio State team, and a player who was described in the team's official game notes as a mature, experienced player. That was the phrase they used, I think, 3 different times in the game notes this season. So, Brandon, thanks so much for being here today. How's your morning going?
It's good, man. Of course. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking before we started recording here about how, the season ends. I know those of you that listen to this have heard me talk about this before, but it's always so abrupt and jarring when the season ends. And you're in a locker room for 30 minutes and you're trying to catch up with guys to get ideas on summer plans and what might be next. And then also you have guys that's the end of the line for college, and they've got lots to figure out and lots to start to process, and it makes for awkward interviews at times. And so I really like when I get opportunities to catch up with guys when the dust has settled a little bit and just kind of reflect and see how things are going. And so I'm super excited to have Brandon on here with us today. And before we get into hoops, I learned as we were getting ready for this that you're not a coffee drinker. And so when it comes to all right, you're really tired, whatever, what's your go-to then? What do you, if you need some energy, what do you go with?
I really don't have a great answer for you. I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't drink energy drinks. Caffeine of any sort really is not something that I drink. So really it's just kind of push through it. You know what I mean?
I admire that because I think I'd be dead if it wasn't for that. So we're at an interesting point here on the calendar where everyone's kind of trying to figure out what's next, and the rosters are still being finalized and things like that. So before we kind of get into last season and the journey, can you tell us a little bit what life has been like post NCAA tournament for you?
It's definitely been different. It's something I haven't had to experience before. Up until this point, every year I've known at least, generally speaking, what I'm going to be doing next year.
Sure.
And for the last 6 years, that's looked like, hey, I'm going to be playing in college. The first 5 I knew where it was going to be, and the 6th going into that year I wasn't sure, but once I decided, it's okay, that that was over. Now I'm ready to go play at Ohio State. So this year, I don't know where I'll be in a few months playing.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest thing that I've noticed is like sure, there's a light in the tunnel. Like I know I'll be playing somewhere,
right.
barring something crazy happening, but it's just like where? Like it could be, a number of different places. So right now I'm just kind of working with no real end in sight, or at least no sure end in sight. So it's just kind of a unique spot to be in for sure.
Now, I know, like, in order to get to the heights that you've gotten to in your career, you have to focus on, like, we always hear the one day at a time and, just the next thing that's right in front of you. What has that been like to then, I guess, focus on that on a daily personal basis where it's not within, like, a team concept or not within hey, I'm getting ready to play with these guys or this coach or whatever. Like, when that focus is just on you. Like, how is that different, or is that different?
No, it for sure is different. I'm a very organized guy and stuff in terms of like I like to know what's going on, like to know where I'll be, what I'm doing, that sort of thing, and have a pretty good plan for whether that be the day, the week, the month, or even further along. Like I said, I just don't have that right now.
Yeah.
I'm just working out, doing what I should do to be a better player, and that's really it. That's the extent of my planning goes, and that's just, again, like I said, that's just so weird for me to not have. Kind of like my mind set on what's going on next.
Yeah. So do you have like a daily routine right now, or does it change from day to day for you, or what is it like? Like I assume you've probably already got some work in this morning, maybe even before we start recording.
No, not this morning.
Okay.
It's a little early for me, but
fair enough.
Like after this, I'll head out and I'll head straight to the gym pretty much. So it really depends on day to day. Between my lifting schedule, my working out schedule, and my shooting schedule. Working out when I'm like a trainer. I say that kind of loosely, but so it really just depends on the day to day. Like there's stuff going on at the shot a lot of times, so that kind of affects my shooting schedule, my lifting schedule. Obviously, we kind of had some changes in the off season with that, so I'm kind of putting together what I can to go to lift. So that's kind of been unique. I know that'll kind of settle down here in a few weeks, and I'll be able to get back in the shot with those guys. But it's just kind of it's all over the place. And that's something that's been new to me too, because normally I'm on the schedule of like the team, which has been super easy to do. I just, show up when I'm supposed to, and, easier said than done now with not having that. So
do you pick up any random hobbies to maybe fill some time? Anything outside of basketball that maybe now that you're not on a team schedule that you have time to do, or movies you catch up on, shows? I don't know, anything like that?
I'm a big movie guy.
Okay.
I really like watching movies, and I've never been really a TV show guy because I've been strictly movies, but I'm currently watching True Detective, the first season of True Detective. So that's kind of something I'm, picking up as I have more free time per se.
It's not exactly apples to apples, but when I've been in between, it's been a long time, but before I got this job, I was in between jobs for a little while, and we lived down the street from a library, and I would just go to the library and I'm sending out job applications and whatever, and it's like I would just rent movies and things like that because I had to pass the time somehow. So I've heard a lot of good things about True Detective. What is that on?
Currently, I think it's on HBO.
Okay.
But I think it's HBO.
Okay. So I also saw so this last weekend you got your degree from Ohio State, right?
Yep, that's correct.
Did you walk at graduation?
So I didn't walk on Sunday,
okay.
But earlier in the week on Wednesday night, the College of Education and Human, I think it's ecology, they had their master's and doctorates like hooding ceremony. So I went there. It was at the Mershon Auditorium. So Wednesday night I had a little ceremony with everyone in my college. So that was kind of a smaller group, a little more personalized. I felt that would be a little better than, all the people at the shoe, which would have been cool, I admit, but just a lot of people and Mother's Day. And I just kind of thought that probably wasn't the best.
Yeah.
Wasn't the best thing for me.
So and you got a master's in sports coaching? Is that
correct?
Right?
Yep.
What intrigued you about that field? What was it about that was something you wanted to pursue?
So the longer that I've been in a college locker room and just seen, that side of things, I really kind of decided that I think I want to get into coaching. And that was something when I started in college, it was never crossed my mind. I was like, man, like when I'm done, I'll get a job and I'll play, then get a job, and just, my basketball days will be done when I'm done playing. But the longer I've sat, like I said, in the locker room, talked with coaches, dealt with coaches, and seen those film sessions and all the stuff that goes into, what it takes to run a basketball team, it's just something I think I really enjoy.
Okay.
And that's something that when I'm done playing, that's what I want to pick that up and take that, as far as it can take me. It's just something that sounds really, I say fun. I know it's a lot of work and a lot of, long hours and that sort of thing, but it just kind of seems like something I would really enjoy doing.
Well, it's that cliche of like find something you love and then you never work a day in your life. type of.
Yep.
Which, is also a great way to, it's just a great way to be. I've talked about it on here. People have heard me say that, like, that's kind of what I consider this job. And it's like, when you do end up doing something that has crazy hours and long nights and weekends and all those kinds of things, like, if you don't love it, it's going to grind you down. So it's neat that, like, you kind of found that passion kind of along the way. I think I read somewhere, were you initially like a chemistry major?
Yeah, that's what my undergraduate degree was at Wright State. And then my first year of master's studies at Wright State was chemistry as well.
Okay. So do you have 2 degrees then now? Or
I
did
do.
you? Okay.
Yes, I have 2.
Okay. Cause like, I know I talked to Seth Towns like a year or 2 ago, and he has like 4 or something. I mean, he has figured out like how to get the most education. Like it's impressive stuff. But, so you talked about like coaches and being part of like those locker rooms and how that's kind of impacted you. Like, you've been around a lot of coaches over the years. Like, are there, what sort of things have you picked up along the way that you've been like, man, I could see myself doing that?
I'm a pretty detail-oriented guy, and just the amount of work that goes into studying, for example, like when you're putting together a scouting report, the amount of times like you have to watch these other teams and try and pick up on their tendencies, the plays that they run, the things that they like, just basically their style of play. And being able to pick that up from film, just watching that game and just trying to understand what they're trying to do. And it's usually going to be different than you, because, no 2 team kind of has the exact same game plan, strategy, kind of feel for their style of play. So I'm trying to see how that differs from yours, and then trying to see how you can counter that and, to win the game.
What style of coach do you think you'll be?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think with time I'll see that, but I think it's hard for me to say right now.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be something that'll be, looking back in, 10, 15 years time, hopefully, when I'm, done playing and I'm coaching, it'll be interesting to see kind of what kind of coach I am.
What is, like you said, like, when the playing career is over, then, you take the next step into that field. I think people are always very interested in like how you go from like the college to the professional career, and like what that navigating process is like. And so can you just like give us a little bit of an idea of how you go about figuring out, okay, what is that next fit? Where am I going to be next year? Like, obviously you have an agent that I'm sure helps you with that, but like, how do you start sifting through some of that and just navigate like the process of, I don't know where I'm going to be, but I'm going to be somewhere.
It's kind of similar to what I was talking about earlier. Like, you just don't necessarily know. And that's kind of the hardest part. Like, for example, like when I was in the transfer portal, it's a very short, very quick window. Like, day 1, you're receiving all these calls and texts. Day 2, the same thing. Day 3, same thing. And then kind of, maybe a week or 2, you've kind of decided.
Mm-hmm.
The professional side of things is much, much different. Obviously I'm not going to get, drafted in the NBA. So that's one thing that sets that aside. My options are, I don't want to say limited. That's not entirely true at all. It's just like, I kind of know the range that I'll be sitting in. Like, it's either going to be, overseas basketball, G League, possibly, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just a time thing. As those guys at the top kind of to find their places through the draft, through, free agent signings and that sort of thing, it just kind of trickles down. And eventually kind of when it gets to a point where, my range of players are going to be, that's kind of when I'll know. And for that, it'll be, I'm afraid, probably a month, a few more weeks after that. I'm really not sure, to be honest, with the exact timeline, but I know that like the trickle down effect will hit my group of people eventually.
Yeah.
And so when it does, it's really just kind of, seeing out all the options that you might have, whether that be, domestically or overseas, and then just kind of going from there.
Now that you mentioned a moment ago, like the transfer portal process and kind of what that's like. And that's a great segue to flashback to about a year ago where, at this point last year, you were obviously committed to Ohio State and that was all said and done. But like, I remember talking to you at the time, you described like speed dating and just like, how quickly that all moves. But when you reflect back on it, what was this transfer portal process like for you that you said, okay, like I'm going to take my chance at Ohio State? Just
a lot of things made sense. And we can get into this later. Like, despite things not working out exactly how I or the coaching staff or to be honest, anyone really planned it to go, looking back, I still believe that it made the most sense. It was the right decision. Just, you can't always, things don't always work out exactly how I want them to. But looking back, this place checked all the boxes that I had. It just made the most sense. Both sides kind of had a mutual agreement of where this thing should go or what it would look like. And then that's the option that I took and what I jumped on. And, it just didn't exactly pan out, but it just made the most sense.
Well, and, as an Ohio kid growing up, what was like Ohio State like in your household? Was it a big deal? Did you follow? How closely did you follow the Buckeyes when you were a kid?
That's a good question. So I wasn't like an absolute diehard fan. Mm-hmm. I was always a fan to an extent where I would go to the camps when I was little. Okay. I think I went to 4 or 5 in a row when I was growing up. Went to a few basketball games, here and there. I didn't really go to any football games. I liked football, but was never a true like a diehard in that sense either. Sure. So, it was just kind of like a loose, like I was a fan, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I was like, man, I was, dying for it. But I was definitely a fan. That's for sure. I have a lot of clothes growing up, and there's pictures of me in my younger days wearing, the Block O here and there. So it's kind of funny to look back and see those pictures as I get older, and especially having played for Ohio State now, it means a lot more to me.
Well, I guess file this under did not do my job well enough this past year, but you say you went to like 4 or 5 like camps when you were a kid. Did you get to meet any players? Like this would have been a story I should have written at some point. Did you get to do you have like, I don't know, photos of guys that you were with at camp or anybody that you met or anything like that?
Yeah, there's a few, definitely a few pictures. My mom probably has stored somewhere away on a hard drive somewhere. But the one thing that I know for sure I have like proof of is like every year they give you like a little certificate that you went to the camp with your name on it, and I got a couple of those signed by, because you know how we do the lines, or they can go through and get this. So I've had my players or the players that were there at the time, sign all those certificates, and it was pretty cool to. Those are again at the house somewhere. I've seen them since this time last year. It's just kind of funny to look back at those. I think the last year I went was D'Lo's only year in college. I think that was the last year that I went. At that point, I had gotten a little too old and I had quit going. But that was the last year I went. So it's pretty funny, especially having got to work out with D'Lo last summer when I got here.
Yeah, well, that's like. I probably should have asked that question at some point in the last year. That would have been a good story to write. So I guess we're making up for time here. So you go back to last year, and so you go through the portal, go through that process, you get on campus. What was it like to get started? Like, every team is so new every year. And for you, having been at Wright State for as long as you had, like it was a whole new situation for you. But when you got there and you look around and start seeing the pieces and everything, like what were those early days like for you?
Like you said, it's kind of weird. And I think this is the weirder thing for me than maybe many other people is I was at one place for so long.
Right.
I was at one place for longer than most people have their entire college career. Right. You know what I mean? Like 5 years at Wright State, most people only have 4 anywhere. So that was definitely one side of things. I was so used to seeing things done. I can't say one way because I had 2 different coaches at Wright State, but for the most part, one way. Yeah. I was so used to seeing things that way. So when I got to Ohio State, the biggest adjustment was just having different things to do. You know what I mean? It was just different. But no, it was really cool coming in June and getting to work out. And I actually started a little bit earlier towards the end of May, just kind of on my own, just, trying to work out and just get a feel for the facility, just being here, being in Columbus again. But no, it was really different. It was really cool. I had a lot of fun last summer. We did a lot of team bonding things, probably, once a week, and just a lot of things that made my time more enjoyable even after I got hurt. Like, the guys that I'm close with and cool with. So it made things a lot more enjoyable than if we were just a bunch of guys playing basketball together. I think that's what made things a lot more enjoyable for me.
Were you a good paintball player?
I was okay. I'm not going to say, I was a great one, but I definitely wasn't a bad one. Like I held my own out there, and that was a lot of fun. I will say it was probably one of the hottest, like I've been in a long time, because in the heat years, you're not wearing sweatpants, a hoodie, and all those things on. I think all of us were very, very, very hot. We had to drink a lot of water and stuff to stay hydrated. That was kind of the only downside of that day was, the heat, but it was a lot of fun.
One of my favorite stories that I wrote 2 seasons ago was about Kalen Etzler and him playing paintball, and he played sleeveless.
Oh,
which I've played. It's been a long time, but like growing up, there was a paintball place like 45 minutes from my house, and I went with some friends like 2 or 3 times. And I mean, they had a whole bunch of different courses. There was like a city, there was like a jungle, there was trenches. It was fun, but I mean, I got shot through clothes from like 15 feet, and like I had a welt for weeks. And I'm like, yeah, Kalen playing without sleeves that's pretty intense.
It's a bold play by him for sure.
So when you get there like that summer and you get to the fall and like things maybe start to solidify and obviously you're right there, you're in that starting lineup. What when you think back on like the fall and like the team starting to build a little bit of an identity, getting to know each other, like what did you make of like what you guys had collectively and kind of how you fit into that as the year got underway?
I just felt that we were super talented. And that's one of the things that you put a team together, and that's kind of probably one of the first things you look at is, talent, how good the guys are. And I felt like we had a lot of guys that were just really, really good basketball players. And that a lot of teams are like that, but the teams that can put it together chemistry wise, feel for each other wise, the teams that can put it together that way are the best teams. And I felt that we had a good start very, very early of putting that together, as a team, not just a bunch of talented guys, but a bunch of talented guys that can play together. So I think something early in the fall I noticed is that we were looking like we were able to do that.
When, I think it was the scrimmage you guys had against Tennessee, I remember like the reports that I got out of that were that you had acquitted yourself really well. One of the I think leading scorers in that game, and I know those are secret scrimmages, but what did an outing like that do for you and like your confidence and just like settling into a role at a new school? Like what did that experience do for you?
So at Wright State we probably played one or two high major teams a year,
right.
And I had a couple good games against those guys, and a couple bad games. So just kind of like the inconsistency of not being able to do it often. So having that first scrimmage against Tennessee just kind of gave me a chance to, all right, this is going to be, how it is 80% of the games we have this year. So what's that going to feel like? And again, like you said, closed door scrimmage, no fans, no nothing in a practice gym. So it's kind of a different feel, but at the same time, the level of guys that, on that Tennessee team, that's a pretty good Tennessee team. I know their season didn't end like they wanted it to, but it's a good team. So it was cool to be able to play those guys and then have a good outing. Again, although no one really knows about it, it's still good to have that outing. And it kind of did, solidify the confidence that I had in myself that I could, play at that level.
So when the season gets underway and you start actually playing games that we can all watch and we can all talk about, like, was there, hey, this is my last go round? Were you doing some of that, like, I need to take this in type of stuff? Or do you have to just stay like, I can't let myself worry about that. I'll think about that when it's all over.
Kind of like you mentioned earlier, try and take things one day at a time. But just this year, and even kind of last year, my last year at Wright State, I was just trying to be more appreciative for, the things that go on around me, because most people don't have the opportunity to play past year 4. And I was able to, for a number of reasons, but just really, really just trying to be more appreciative and understand, a lot of people, would kill to be in the situation that I'm in or the guys around me. And just so having that kind of perspective of like trying not to be entitled. And I would like to say, that's something I never was, just because the situation that I came from recruiting wise and, just the ability to play somewhere wise, I didn't have, a whole lot of choices, first coming out of high school. So really just trying to be, not entitled, just trying to be appreciative for the situation that I was in. And again, a lot of people would kill to be in the spot I was in. So just trying to have that perspective at the same time as like, attacking every day is kind of a balance I had to have. And I think I did that pretty well.
One of the games that really jumps out to me in that early part of the season is certainly the Northwestern game and the way that you were able to just dominate in that game. And that was such a critical win for Ohio State going through the season, as you guys were kind of like a win here, a loss here, win here. And like, that ended up being like a resume booster, and they don't win that game if you don't have the game that you had. We talked after the game and, kind of what that experience was like, but like, when you reflect back on that, like a game like that, like how does that impact, maybe how you see yourself on the team? How does that impact how teams then guard you going forward? Like what does a day like that, a game like that do?
It really just kind of shows people that I was capable. I didn't have to have a good year. I don't have to have that kind of game every game.
Sure.
We have way too much talent on that team last year. I didn't have to do that. And sometimes it would have been nice if I could have shown shades of that much, much more often than I did. And that's the only thing that, is kind of a bummer to think about, is like, I could have played a lot better. Again, I don't have to have, however many points I had that game every game, but at least to have like shades of that in certain segments of the first half, second half, just to be able to play better and help the team more. I'm really, really disappointed I couldn't do that. But again, it just kind of shows people that I was capable. I mean, I think, if you look at the body of work over this last year, it wasn't exactly, ideal. And just being able to I still can be the player that I'm capable of. It didn't happen, which is again very unfortunate. But just to be able to show people that it was there, is something I can, that's the only thing I can hang my hat on at this point.
Well, and that leads into like the next thing that I definitely want to talk to you about is that I say this all the time, that like injuries are so, I mean, that they flat out stink, and there's no way around it. And whether a guy makes a shot, misses a shot, turns the ball over, whatever, I always root for the person to have that opportunity. And then whatever happens from that, then whatever happens from that. But it's when you don't have the chance because of an injury, and it's not anything that you can control. That's where I always, my heart goes out to every athlete that goes through that, because it's just not fair and it stinks. And I know that's just life. But like you said, like you wish, there had been maybe more consistent, or you could have shown some things more often, but you end up missing 2 months of the season due to injury, which is not anything that you can control. That game against Nebraska, what happened, in that injury? Like how did that, because I don't think any of us in the moment realized that you were injured and then you were out for 2 months. How did it happen?
Yeah, it's one of those things you can't necessarily, talk about when it's happening, just for the sake of like maybe being able to come back, maybe not. Like you kind of just want to, push things to the side and what's going on the floor. That's kind of the main focus of things. And so here's kind of the rundown for you. So in that morning, I think it's either 8 or 8:30, and I had done this pretty much every day of the week, is get a workout with the managers in. Mm-hmm. Either a couple, the coach come in and the managers come in. That morning it was just the managers and I. We were shooting. We probably shot for about an hour. And my foot kind of felt a little sore that morning. And I was like, that's kind of odd. I haven't had any issues since early fall, when I missed about a week at time, like during the open practice window. So like, that's kind of odd, but whatever, I'll just kind of brush it off and move on throughout the day. So then the shoot around comes. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours before the game, whatever, and the foot feels a little worse, a little more sore. But I can tell it's different from what it was in the fall. It's not quite the outside of my foot. It's more in the middle, or kind of centralized throughout my whole foot. So, okay, go through shoot around, that's fine, whatever, pregame meal, have a few hours, and then warm up comes, and like, man, my foot kind of hurts. Like, it's kind of like, I can tell something's up. Like, this isn't really good. Continue to go, continue to warm up, that sort of thing. When I check into the game, like at that point, my foot is like kind of killing me.
Yeah.
And I step out one of those times and I tell Tony, I'm like, or our trainer Tony, I'm like, hey man, like, listen, like something's wrong with my foot. Like we need to kind of look at this at halftime or something, like talk to Doc, see what's going on. So this is kind of where it starts to get really unfortunate. So my foot is killing me at this point. So I go in at halftime and I get an x-ray of my foot and it's okay. The facilities at Ohio State and the shot scene are excellent. And so I was able to get that x-ray at halftime, which is really, at the time I felt very reassuring that my foot is okay. Like this will be just something that'll pass, whatever. So I check back in the second half. I think I have like a 3-minute stretch and probably minute 1.5, minute 2, I'm backpedaling down the floor and it pops. My foot pops on me and I'm like, okay, I'm not obviously thinking like this in the game exactly, but I'm like, oh, that doesn't feel good. So I play the next 1.5 minutes on it and then I get subbed out and I hobble off and I'm like, listen, like I'm talking to Tony. I'm like, I'm done. I got to go. I'm done. We need to, something's wrong. Get back to the locker room, take another x-ray. Sure enough, in mid game, it's done. It broke right in half.
Wow.
So it was I've never had that happen to me.
Yeah.
Relatively healthy the last. So from once I tore my ACL, my very first fall there at Wright State, all the way up until I got to Ohio State, I think I missed what would have been 1 game worth of time. Yeah. Outside of that first year, 1 game worth of time, and it was a pretty knee soreness game. Mm-hmm. So I played basically 97 straight games. So yeah, it was just like just a shot right to the heart. Like, man, and at that point, like you broken bone, you kind of think you're done.
Yeah.
And at that point, I kind of thought I was. So I go back out and sit the rest of the Nebraska game, but it's just hard. It's just really, really hard. So that's kind of like you talk about the abrupt ending at the end of a season. That's just another one there for me 2 months earlier than I anticipated.
Right.
But yeah, no, it was definitely one of the weirdest things ever. Like I don't know where it came from. Yeah. There was nothing there the day before. It's really, really weird. I don't have a great reason for why. I don't think anyone to this day has a reason for why that could have happened.
So one thing that you said earlier that I thought was really interesting, you said like, it was feeling some soreness and whatever, and like, thinking it's going to pass. Like that's pretty common across the board, right? Like we always hear coaches say that like you get into the grind of the league, like nobody's really fully healthy by the time like you get into league play. Like how common is it? It just, I'm not speaking maybe even just about this specifically, but just in general, like how, like, can you, aside from the coach speak of like, yeah, no one's 100%, like what is that like in a locker room? Like how banged up are guys like throughout the course of a year? Cause I mean, I'm sure everybody's dealing with that to some extent and we never know it.
It really depends on the guy, but I would venture to go down the line here. Every guy had some sort of soreness at some point, whether that be, we had a couple guys with some wrist things this year, I'm sure a couple guys rolled an ankle in practice here and there. I know, some knee soreness. Knee soreness is a common thing with basketball players. It happens all the time just because the amount of stress we put on our knees and the jumping and running and all that stuff. So, Yeah, I would venture to go down the line and say everyone had some sort of soreness at some point. Like even myself, I had gotten kneed in the quad like a couple weeks prior to that game.
Okay.
And I just, again, nothing that's like slowing me down but it's like, yeah, it kind of hurts.
Yeah, you're going to notice that.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But again, it's not like it's, limiting the way I can move and stuff, but it's just kind of annoying more so than anything. And I know pretty much every guy was dealing with something of that nature, even like, especially someone like Bruce, who's playing a lot of minutes. Devin is playing a lot of minutes. Junie, like those guys are playing a ton of minutes. And I know like Tilly had a lot of those things throughout the year.
Yep.
So just things like that. I know these guys are feeling things. I think Amari rolled his ankle one time early in the year, and he was going to miss a game maybe, and he didn't. So just things like that. There's a ton of things going on that like, just aren't necessary for people to know about all the time because everyone's going through it. It's just kind of like, it's just part of the game.
Right. So like you said, the abruptness of something like that happening when you leave maybe the shot that night or, maybe wake up the next day, like who do you lean on? Like there's going to be a physical process of hoping to get back on the floor, but like who do you lean on to get through that? Who's like your support system that helps you navigate that and not let that like crush you? Because I can imagine that has to be really challenging in that moment.
Yeah, at this point in my life, I've been away from home for so long that like, although my mom and my aunt and like my family are still huge supporters of me and all that stuff, like they came over that night after the game and just like, because I was crutching home, just kind of making sure like I'd be okay, and then they stayed for probably 30 minutes, whatever, then left. So those guys are, really big for me, but at the end of the day, whether they know it or not, it's the teammates in the locker room. Maybe if I was younger, that wouldn't be my answer, but having been in college so long and away from home for so long, like, sure, my family can help me and all that stuff. It's great to have them there and supporting me. But those guys in the locker room that you go to every morning and just see them and just having them like, that's kind of the biggest support that I think I'll have as a college basketball player. That's something that I'll miss outside of just what I'm talking about now, but for years to come, I'll miss those guys. Just being able to be close with, you really don't ever have that again. Even when you're playing professionally, you'll never quite truly get what you got in college again. And that's something that's, I don't know if it's talked about enough, how unfortunate it is that you'll never have those, for the most part, relationships ever again.
Yeah.
But those guys are the guys that I come into the locker room every day and just have their support, have their back, whether they're doing it on purpose or not. It's just that's what gets me through every day.
So how important was that then as you start to build a plan to hopefully get back? I mean, I know it was as soon as the injury was announced, they weren't ruling you out for the season. There's always that hope that you would get there. How did that support then enable you to start that rehab process of like, I want to get back out here, and I know I'm doing it like with these guys that are helping me.
It's really that chase of the common goal. Like we all, at the end of the day, we all for the most part want one thing, and that's to win games, make March Madness, and then win more games in there. And obviously, the national championship's like the ultimate goal for everyone. So just having that one common goal of like all pushing forward for wins, and my path looked different than the guys next to me that were healthy. My chase of that goal was to just try and get back healthy to do whatever I can to help. Those guys were trying to play well to help win games. So everyone's. And this is the truth for everyone going down. Everyone's goal and what they have to do to help that looks a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Guy 1 through guy 15 has something different they have to do. And at that point, mine was just trying to get healthy. But again, coming in every day and seeing those guys next to me doing what they do just kind of pushed me to continue to do what I needed to do. Again, it looked a lot different than those guys. A lot of the time mine was, scooting around from place to place on the scooter, just trying to, stay involved, trying to stay mentally involved and just try and help some of the younger guys wherever I can. But it was hard. It was definitely hard.
Did you learn any cool tricks on the scooter? Or is that frowned upon?
No, but it was just hard, like just trying to get from place to place and, hopping around, especially stairs. It seemed like every road trip we went on, there was just an egregious amount of stairs that I've never noticed before.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause if it doesn't bother you, why would you even notice it? But it just seemed like, especially that first trip we went on right after I got hurt out to the West Coast for Eugene and Seattle, like, man, like I swear I've never seen that many steps in my life. And it was just like, it was just a mess trying to get through. But the biggest thing is that the managers helping me through all that. 'Cause like they would always, move my scooter around, move my crutches around. And it's kind of like I had to do, the only thing I had to do was, drive around from point A to point B. They took care of the rest. And that's, again, super appreciative for those guys. And they acted like it was just another one of their duties, which they didn't have to do that. So it was, it was awesome to have those guys just helping me, along with, the staff and the players and doing their part here and there. But they have so much more to focus on. But the managers, shout out to them for just being there, with the guy that's scooting around all the time. I appreciate that.
So when you're trying to come back from an injury like that, is the key just rest? or is the key rest? And like, are there things they can do to make a bone heal faster? I honestly don't know. Like, how do you try to attack that and and get back as soon as you can while also not, re-injuring it or anything like that?
Yeah. So really the first, I want to say maybe 6 or so weeks of that was like no weight, no pressure on it whatsoever.
Okay.
I don't know how much it would. I'm sure it definitely couldn't have been good if I did it. So I just stayed off of it. Obviously, I had a bone stimulator. I'm not sure exactly how much that really does anything. You don't feel anything. It's just kind of like I don't know. You might have saw it on my boot here and there throughout the year. It's just a little black little box, and it reached down on my boot and like I don't know, does some sort of electric stimulation or something.
Magic.
I really don't know.
Magic. We'll go with magic.
Yeah, that works for me because it didn't feel like anything.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that might have did a little something. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, to tell you the truth. I have no idea. But really the first, like I said, 6 weeks, we're just kind of staying off of it.
Okay.
And then after that, that's when you kind of try and ramp it up a little bit as tolerated. My recovery to this was a little bit quicker, a little bit more, I don't want to say rush because I did it, the right way to where I wouldn't re-injure myself. But it was very much like, had we not had those games at the end of the year that I could have played, it probably would have taken me a little bit longer to get back.
Yeah.
Just the way it is. It's not like I was, putting myself at risk or anything. I don't think the training staff wouldn't let me do that. Neither would the coaching staff because they know, I know that there's more playing days after, unfortunately for me, after that Ohio State year. So that they were looking out for my best interest as well. And again, I really appreciate that as well. But, I definitely came back as quick as I basically possibly could given the situation of what I did to my foot. So,
and I know from talking to Jake, like as the season went on and as you guys were getting closer and closer to the end, he kept saying, hopefully back by the end of the season, hopefully. And I remember having one interview with him. It was like the last week. And I said, you only have like a week left. And he's like, yeah, we're aware of the calendar. But like, when did you know that like it was realistic you would be back? And like, I guess when did it all kind of click that like, okay, I'm going to play at least a couple of minutes here before this thing is all done? Like, when did you get to that point?
I think it was a really, really quick ramp up process. So the week of the Indiana, I think Indiana was a Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it like the weekend? Was the weekend game?
Yes.
Yeah. So during that week, I believe, again, my days are kind of, messed up with this sort of thing. I don't remember as well as I probably should, but I think earlier in that week is kind of when I started actually doing some moving around.
Okay.
And then I warmed up for the Indiana game.
That's right. Yes.
Basically, I mean, I want to say probably like 80-ish, 90-ish%, like pretty close to being as full speed. Like, I probably I don't know, let's say I needed to for whatever reason. I probably could have checked into that game. Maybe it would have been really close. I don't know how I warmed up for the whole time, whatever. So that I might wore me out and didn't realize it. Just maybe the adrenaline and stuff of senior night and all that stuff going on. But, kind of during that day, that morning is kind of when I felt good about it. I'm like, man, I probably could play coming up Big Ten tournament. So that was kind of the day. But again, really close to the end of the season to be like, yeah, I can play next game. That was kind of the time where it's like, I don't know. Yeah, it was really weird. But I felt at that point that day that I could probably play at the next game.
So when you did play in that game against Michigan, can you explain or describe what that must have felt like to step back out on the court? And there was a reaction in the crowd. I remember hearing there was an acknowledgement, a recognition that you were back from the Ohio State fans that were there. But like, did you allow yourself half a second to say, all right, man, I'm back? Or was it like, yo, we're playing Michigan and this game's huge. We're in it right to the end. Like I can't think about any of that right now.
The realization didn't come till afterwards.
Okay.
I knew pregame pretty close to tip off. Like, and again, sometimes things like this happen, but like they and it doesn't always work out. But they told me like, yeah, like you're going to play this game, like for sure. So I kind of knew at that point. Again, it doesn't always guarantee it because who knows what could happen in a game.
Sure.
But for the most part, you take their word for that, and I took their word for it. Like I knew that like, okay, I'm going to play this game. Now, how much does that look like? Does it look like 30 seconds to just give someone a breather? Does it look like 10 minutes? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I knew that I would check in. So at that point, I maybe kind of had like a, just like a breath of fresh air. Like, hey man, like I might be able to put on this jersey and actually do something with it one more time.
Yeah.
But the true realization of like, man, like I was able to play again didn't come till after the game, sitting in the locker room.
So the way that this whole season unfolded for you guys as a unit, I mean, where it was like you were on that bubble for so long, you're the right side, the wrong side, win, loss, and when you're in that locker room and you're trying to get back on the court, but you're with these guys every single day, like what was it like living that experience of fighting for your tournament lives every day? It seemed like every game was like do or die. I mean, like the stakes were so high for every game for so long because you guys were like right there. When you're inside that, what was that like to live through? And how did you see this team handle that?
It's something that coming from a mid-major program, I've never had to do, because normally all of our season, as far as tournament hopes goes, comes down right at the end during our conference tournament.
Right.
That's when each game matters more so than every game before that. So this is a unique feeling where we're fighting for our tournament hopes, in early February, or however you want to look at the date when that comes a thing. So it was weird. But I know we were on the bubble, on and off for quite a while. And at the Iowa game at Iowa when we lost, bad loss. At the time we felt like, I don't want to say we, because that's not true. It just kind of felt like, man, that was a huge point in our career or our season. When we go up from here, we're going to go down from here. We all knew that was going to be it pretty much.
Yeah.
And obviously we see how that went for us now. We know from that point on, we went, basically only up. We won a lot of games, played really, really well, and put ourselves, comfortably in the tournament at an 8 seed.
Right.
So, but that's one way, you could have looked at that and been like, man, our season's over. We could have walked out of the Iowa game and sat in that locker room and been like, oh, good job, guys, it's over. And we did the complete opposite of that. We fought, and it wasn't easy. We had a long talk in the Iowa locker room and just kind of listen, we have to be better. We have to do something to get us, in that tournament comfortably. And we did that. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, we did that. So that was probably, I want to say, the turning point in our season, because at that point we were kind of on and off the bubble, up and down. And I think a lot of people, especially from the outside, and I feel had to look at us and be like, yep, after the Iowa game, they're probably done. That's probably the nail in the coffin. They're probably not going to make it. This is going to be, just that's it. That's the year. But we didn't let that happen. Coaching staff all the way down to the managers didn't let that happen. And I'm glad we didn't, because, from the side watching, I'm glad I was able to make the tournament one more time. Although how much did I have to do with that? I don't know, but it doesn't really matter. I'm happy that I was able to, contribute a little bit to, be in the tournament. I'm glad that our team was able to end the year that way, especially the way things were looking at that point in the time.
Well, why do you think this team was able to do that? Because we've seen teams in the last couple of years that it's gone the other way for Ohio State. Why was this team able to draw that line? That's
a great question. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we had the right guys to do it, and I don't think things always went the way we wanted them to. We had a lot of close losses.
Yep.
You can go down the list of games we probably could have won, should have won. You have these screenshots in the games with 10 seconds and we're up. We end up losing. I think that happened a few times. It's can't always account for some of the things that happen in those games. It's just kind of unfortunate, but I think we had the guys to do it, and that's what it comes down to. We had the guys to do it. We had the plans to do it. And when things, fell our way and we did what we were supposed to do and executed what we were supposed to do, we won the games. And I think that's towards the end of the year, we knew we had to do it or else. And for some reason, that's what it took for us to, put ourselves in that position we finished in. Did
Jake Diebler seem any different as the season got more down to the wire and everything, like I said, seemed so do or die? What was he like as a coach, navigating kind of through this whole process?
I don't think his intensity changed, because I think he always had that from the start of the year.
Okay.
I don't think he came into this and was just kind of lackadaisical, and then as soon as things kind of getting a little worse, he ramps it up all of a sudden. It's man, we got to win now. That's not how he coaches. That wasn't how it went. He was, as locked in as you can be from the start, and treating every game, whether it comes to, game one against, IU Indy to, whatever the last game was we played against Indiana. It didn't make a difference. He was as ramped up and as ready to go, and had us doing the same every game. So it was I think it was more of a matter of us playing the way we were supposed to. You know what I mean? I think it was more of us being the intensity up higher, us having that level of readiness towards the end of the year that we didn't have maybe necessarily at the beginning of the year when we were playing those games that we maybe, didn't pull out those close ones like we should have.
Well, you mentioned making the NCAA tournament and how big of a deal that was, what that felt like. That experience of having that opportunity and playing on that stage, what did that mean to you?
It was great. The first time when I made the tournament at Wright State, I wasn't playing again.
Right.
It was another thing. I was redshirting, and I knew I had no chance of playing that year.
Yep.
But again, it was a great experience, and it's something that everyone always assumes they'll be able to go back, or we can, but it's not always a guarantee.
Yep.
Even at the high major level, it's not a guarantee. You never truly know. But I think so. Just being able to do it twice, and this time being able to check in the game, just really cool. Just something I'll never forget, and just something I'll always be able to again kind of hang my hat on. Man, I played in an NCAA tournament game. That's something I'll always be able to say as a player and getting older.
Were you one of the guys that took name plates and stuff from the locker room? Do you keep things from your career? I thought that was interesting, walking in there for interviews after the TCU game, and guys were taking their like I remember Bruce saying like anything that had his name on it, he was taking because he had fought so long to get there. But like, do you keep things from that experience or from like throughout your career, I guess? Yeah,
I'm the same way. A lot of these, games and years, they mean so much to me, and they'll mean so much to me for the longest time. Like it's this is like one of the best times in my life, and I'll look back on this and I'll agree, in 20 years time, it's just like, it doesn't really get much better than this from a playing career standpoint. So yeah, anything with my name on it, I'm taking. Any extra memorabilia that anyone like around March Madness doesn't want, like I'm taking. Like they had a couple March Madness signs on the wall, and a couple of guys were like, "Hey, can we take this?" And they got the approval, and it's like, "Yeah, you can take it." And I think simultaneously everything got ripped off the wall at once. It was like, "Yeah, we're taking this." So I took one little. I think I took one little March Madness sign, and I had one from back in the day too when I played at Wright State. Same thing. Everyone's kind of like, "Oh, we can take this. Yeah, let's go." So everyone's taking them off. So it's just kind of like just memorabilia of what you was able to do in your younger days. You'll look back on as a 20 years down time, and you'll think, man, that was really cool. And just being able to have stuff from those times, or I don't know, I'll appreciate it down the line for sure.
I have some things like that too. When it's like the end of the day, and you're one of the last people leaving the arena, and it's like the site is over, and there's no more games, and it's like, hey, there's an extra March Madness sign. Like I have some of that stuff in my basement because I'm with you. I like to keep some of that stuff as reminders of the journey, and like man, that was an amazing experience at that place or that place. Like so. That's cool, and it's got to mean even more when like you're the actual. What's the saying about like the person in the arena? Like there's that famous speech. Like obviously,
man in the arena,
obviously I'm in the arena, but not in the arena, so it's a little different for me. But well, I feel like I've already kept you probably longer than you had maybe anticipated, so I'll just hit you with two more things here, and then let you roll. But what do you see like kind of going forward now? Like what do you think of the direction of Ohio State? Like where do you think it was when you got there, and in your 1 year, where do you think things are headed now?
So, like we said, we made the tournament last year, and I think 3 years prior they hadn't. As a program, that's something that like, especially at Ohio State with the standards we have, like that's just something that's not really acceptable. And I know now that I'm a part of it, and that I'll ever have that year that I had there. So, it means a lot more to me than now than it ever did. So I think going forward, I think the expectations just raised. I think this past year's team, set a standard of like the tournament is kind of like the bottom line. That's kind of like the floor of where we want the standard to be. And I know I can speak for the staff and the players going forward. Like that's kind of where they want to be. Mm-hmm. So I think this year coming up, like, yeah, we kind of turned it around per se. If you want to word it that way, however, it kind of sounds a little negative, but at the same time, like I wholeheartedly believe this team will be in the tournament next year, and will be fighting for a better seed than we were, and we'll be playing hopefully deeper into March. You can never account for upsets and that sort of thing, but I think they have positioned themselves. Again, it's hard to say at this time of the year with the recruits you bring in and the transfers you bring in. Like you hope they always work out and that sort of thing. But I think they've put themselves in a good position to be better than this team was last year, and that's at this point in today's day and age all I can ask for.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you. Just overall. We've kind of touched on a lot here. Like when people think back on your year at Ohio State, what do you hope that they most take from your time? What do you hope that maybe people remember you for? What kind of legacy in your year at Ohio State do you hope that you're able to leave?
It's a great question. It's hard with only playing as few games as I did to act like it was my play that I want people to remember more than anything, but just that I cared. Again, I've said it before on this, things didn't work out as well as I wanted them to, as well as the staff wanted them to, or anyone for that matter. Just didn't go as planned or how we all, foresaw that it would go. So just that I cared, and that I wish things didn't go how they did for me personally. But just that it mattered to me, and that I fought every day so I could try and, make things better for myself and for the team. That I, only had 1 year here, but it still will be a part of me, in my career forever. And I'll never forget that, and forever grateful for the opportunity to play here for 1 year.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, like I said, I think I probably kept you longer than maybe you had guessed. So thanks so much for coming in. Thanks so much for doing this. It was great to catch up with you. Good luck going forward, and looking forward to seeing where your career takes you next.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
All right. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that interview. I thought there was some really interesting stuff in there. And like I've talked about on here, and like I talked about with him, my heart always goes out to guys who just get hurt. And we can debate talent, and we can debate play calling, and we can debate all these different things, and we can analyze the numbers. But if you don't get to play, that stinks. We can all agree that there's no debate there. It's just unfortunate. And so appreciate Brandon giving me as much time as he did, and for coming on and talking about all that. hopefully, again, you all enjoyed that. And we're going to keep trying to do more interview podcasts here moving forward. We've gotten a lot of great feedback on the recent ones. You can go back through the feed and find some of the former beat writer or some of the beat writers for the teams that Ohio State has landed transfer players from this offseason. So thanks everyone who's reached out and expressed their thoughts on that. And I actually got some good feedback on the shot survey one last week, which I wasn't sure how that was going to go over, but it sounds like people liked it. So no idea is too ridiculous to consider when it comes to off-season podcasts. So if you got something you want me to cover or you've got an idea, shoot me a message. We'll figure something out. Now I'm going to wrap this one up. As always, you can send along your questions, your comments, your love notes, your hate mail, and otherwise constructive criticism to me at Adam Jardy on Twitter or ajardydispatch.com. Thank you again for listening. Thanks to Patrick Flaherty, the Podfather, for getting us out there. Thanks to Brandon Noel for joining us. I'll be back with you again sometime soon. So until then, be kind, take care, and we'll talk soon. Donato's is legendary for putting so much on their pizzas, but just listen to what they're taking off. Right now, buy any large pizza and add a large one-topping pizza for half off. Use promo code HALF. Donato's, gotta love more.
Be sure and subscribe to the Buckeye Extra podcast in the iTunes Store, the Google Play Store, or on Stitcher.